Most music school owners never think about exit strategies until they decide to close or sell their business. But the things that make a music school valuable to a buyer are the exact same things that make it run more smoothly and profitably for you right now. This episode is part one of a two-part series with experts from Ensemble Performing Arts, a company that operates over 100 music schools purchased from independent studio owners. Amie Nunez was one of those studio owners who now works for Ensemble. On the other side now, Amie helps evaluate businesses and create exit strategies. She's sharing why reducing owner dependency, documenting your systems, and understanding your school's financial health aren't just exit prep. They're how you build a sustainable business that serves you better every single day. The bonus? If you ever do decide to sell, you've already created something far more valuable. Stay tuned. I want to talk real quick about instructor training. Training is incredibly time-consuming, and it's actually something I used to avoid because of it. I'd hire a new guitar instructor and basically cross my fingers, hoping for the best. That strategy, or lack of strategy, just wasn't sustainable. My goal now is providing staff with the right tools to teach effectively and feel confident. When I published Complete Guitar Strumming, I did all the hard, time-consuming work in the front end. Along with the book, I've created a free instructor companion guide and training videos to help new instructors learn the material quickly and teach with confidence. These are the exact same training tools I use, and anyone using the book gets access to them. So you don't need to spend hours training your guitar instructors. I've done the heavy lifting for you. Visit rockschoolproprietor.com/book for all the details. Welcome to Rock School Proprietor Podcast. My name's John Kozicki.
And I'm Mandy York.
Mandy, we've got a guest today.
Yay.
Someone I met last month at NAMM. So our guest, she is a corporate development manager at Ensemble Performing Arts. She's a lifelong musician and ballet dancer, and she's actually a former performing arts school owner herself before she actually sold her school to Ensemble, who she now works for. Amie Nunez. How are you, Amie?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Great. So
Good.
glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So to set this up, Amie, we met at NAMM about a month ago, and we'd not met before. And you came to the session that I spoke at. And after my session, you came up to me, introduced yourself. And do you remember what you said to me? You said, "Have you ever thought about selling your music school?"
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of like
There was a
back and
little
forth first.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't. You didn't come in hard right away. Like, hey,
that wasn't the
you want
first
something?
sentence.
Yeah, right. Not the first one. But I guess is that in part what you do at Ensemble?
Yeah, so my job is really crazy and super fun. It's hard. I find it a little hard to explain because I think that people are not used to, I don't know, this concept of there being an option for studio owners to potentially sell in the future. Like me explaining what I do, it just takes people a minute to process. But the long and short of it is I'm a corporate development manager for Ensemble. Essentially, I am the go-between person for studio owners who are interested in selling or creating an exit strategy in partnership with Ensemble, and then getting them in connection with our team who puts together valuations and makes sure that we would be a good fit for a buyer and potentially makes a deal and then takes over the acquisition piece. So I'm kind of the first step for any studio owner to get in touch with our team and just ask questions. What does it look like when Ensemble buys a business? What does it mean for me? Like with the logistics, the psychology of it. What was it like to sell yours? Like I'm that first person to have a conversation with studio owners, and then I kind of collect financials and answer questions and then pass them along to kind of the next step when they're ready, if they're ready. And we're
yeah. So is part of that like those same interactions that I had with you, where you just kind of come up to people and said, "Hey, you want to sell?"
I was my husband and I ran a music school together for about a decade, and we taught freelance for many, many years before we actually opened our music school. We knew we knew when we opened our music school and were kind of growing and accidentally growing, and the business kind of grew faster than we anticipated. We knew our end goal was to move one day. We knew that we needed an exit strategy in place, but we were clueless. We had no idea what that looked like. We were just hoping that when the time was right, someone would fall out of the sky and it would
Hmm.
just work out for us. We would find someone who might be interested in taking over.
Yeah.
And I learned the hard way that it just doesn't really work out like that. So for us, it
Hmm.
didn't. And so something that is really important to me, being a part of this ensemble team, is just letting people know that we're here.
Hmm.
It's a sensitive topic. It's really hard to get in touch with studio owners and especially for studio owners who have built really, really successful businesses and programs. It's hard to find them and get in touch with them. But the hard work that I do is just finding owners and just saying, "Hey, I'm here. We may not be anything you're interested in, but I don't want you to be as lost as I was. So if this has ever crossed your mind, if you're trying to make plans for the future, here's my contact info." Because again, it really is personal to me. I want to make sure
Hmm.
that studio owners are more educated than I was going through the process myself.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned your school, and I want to go back to that just to kind of create like a mutual understanding. Now, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did you start your school in a similar way that most studio owners start? As you mentioned that you were freelancing, right? And then
Right.
I'm assuming you decided, like, we can do this, right? That
Yep.
passion is there.
Right. So it's a funny story because my husband and I got married in 2012, in September of 2012, and the summer before, he had a full-time job and he said, "Hey, I know we're about to get married, but like I would really like to pursue teaching music full time." And he told my parents, he said, "Hey, like, is that okay with you guys? I know I'm about to marry your daughter. I'm about to quit my job and teach guitar." And
Mhm.
everybody was on board. He had shown, I mean, he had been teaching for many, many years and was really passionate about it. It was a lucrative side hustle for him, and he could really see the big picture of what it could turn into. And
Yeah.
so he did that right before we got married. I was working a full-time job, which was great because at the time, us having the stability of my income while he kind of tried this venture out was really great.
Mhm.
But I very, very quickly got jealous of how much fun he was having teaching music all
Ah,
day.
yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
so I had to kind of like I was embarrassed to ask, but I said, "Can I also quit my job and teach music too?" And so it started out with, I mean, I was renting a space, a choir room in a local church, and my husband was teaching out of our apartment, and we were both doing house calls. It turned into, I mean, we both are hustlers. Like we like to get stuff done, and when we have a
Mhm.
vision, we'll chase after it until we see it happen. Before we knew it, the 2 of us were teaching well over 100 lessons a week, and we just went, "Okay, this is cool. We're making we're making a good living doing this, but this is not sustainable. This is crazy." And so we looked for a little commercial space that we could rent and started really, really small. We had a buddy who wanted to teach with us, so we kinda hired a couple of our friends to teach and take the overflow because we had waiting lists. So we hired a couple friends to start coming on board, and before we knew it, I mean, musicians were coming out of the woodworks who wanted to work for us. The culture we were creating was really cool and collaborative. We grew out of that first space in like 9 months, and so we had to look for some, I mean, that was like a little 1,000 square foot house in downtown Hattiesburg that was commercial. And anyway, we ended up finding our next space, 5,000 square feet, and we moved into that one. It just kind of kept snowballing and snowballing, and we were so excited at the pace we were growing, but very much a building the plane as it flew situation where
Mhm.
we had no experience having employees. And then John, you and I were kind of talking. I mean, you have much more experience running music schools than I do, but you kind of, there weren't a whole lot of resources for us to, I mean, I would scour the internet for, I
Yeah.
don't know, any kind of I don't know, support group?
Yeah,
What do
right?
we need?
Uh-huh.
I was just looking for community and other people who could help us build something that was scalable and would stand the test of time. And I think he and I are really organized, and we did a good job, but there are certainly things we could have done better. But yeah, it just kept growing and growing and growing, and then I don't even remember what your original question was, but that's our origin story. That's how it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I was going with this is, and you gave me what I was looking for, which is how does it start? And your story is very similar to I think a lot of people. And you even said in there, we were just trying to figure it out. And that's all about, I think, figuring out how to scale your business because it isn't sustainable to just keep grinding and grinding and grinding,
Yep.
right? And in those early days, we're not afraid of the hard work. We're not afraid of like putting in the hours because we're excited about it.
Yep.
And, but yes, you have to take a step back and figure out like, okay, how do I continue to maintain this
Mhm.
and grow it, not at the expense of my own sanity and like the
Yep.
hours that I'm putting in.
Yeah.
So when did you think, and you also said that it was kind of a goal at some point to sell anyway, but you just didn't know how that was going to work.
Yeah.
You and I had talked before and a little bit before we started this conversation about me selling my first music school, and that was in like 2013. So
Mhm.
this type of thing that you do with that ensemble didn't exist then.
Yeah.
But for me, it was an agreement with two of my instructors who worked for me. And because my choices were either that or basically close up shop when
Yep.
I decided I was going to move. But for you, how did you ultimately come to the decision to sell?
Wow, huge question. Existential question.
It
No,
is.
no pressure on this one. We we kinda got to, I mean, to be completely honest, I remember looking at my husband and just saying, "I really wanna just be married to you and not have to be business partners," because it
Mm,
had taken, on a personal level, it had taken over our lives. I I just remember, I mean, there was no meal at home, vacation, date night, and we couldn't escape the the monster we had created. I mean,
yeah,
it was something we were so proud of, but we could tell we just didn't have the stamina to keep doing what we were doing, and I think we had gotten to a point where we were really proud of the size that our company had grown, and we weren't really sure that we had the, like, you're talking about that early on excitement and passion, you're, like, willing to sacrifice anything to kinda chase this dream. We had just run out of energy, and we knew that whatever was gonna happen next with the studio, like, the next, I guess, level of growth, we didn't have it in us to do it, to be
mhm,
honest. Kind of had a light bulb moment where we went, "Somebody with more gas in the tank and more excitement and vision is gonna be the person to take it to the next level," because we've worn ourselves out, and we had we weren't anywhere close to our family, so, as time went on and we had little nieces and nephews and our family was growing, we were going, "We wanna be closer to our family." So there were just a lot of personal things in the background that
yeah.
really motivated us to go ahead and get the ball rolling and start looking at options.
I thought it was
You
interesting too. You said earlier that when you started, you knew this wasn't going to be
Yeah.
something that you were gonna do forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
Well, I grew up really close to New Orleans, Louisiana, and I went to the University of Southern Mississippi for college, and I wanted to be a music engineer, so I was part of the production program there. It ended up definitely, as you know, I ended up kinda going a different route, and we started this music school together, but we just we're misplaced Cajuns. Like, we knew that Hattiesburg wasn't home, and we knew that just for the long term, that wasn't a place that we wanted to stay for the rest of our lives. So we always had in the back of our minds, like, we're building this and we're making a good living and this is great, but it's not gonna be a forever place for us to live here.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't did that answer your question, kind of
Yeah.
where our head.
Yeah, well, I it's interesting, yeah, because
Yeah,
we all have different motivations going in
yeah,
or different 5, 10-year plans, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Amie, you also said two words that I want to dig into a little bit. Yeah, you mentioned you felt like you didn't have the gas and the vision to take it
Mm,
to where it was going to go next.
yeah.
And I see those two words as being almost like two potentially different things. Like one is grit.
Okay.
Gas is like energy and grit and like I'm going for it. Vision can also be about ability to understand what the business structure looks like in
Oh,
that
true.
next phase, right? So
Yeah.
when we are building, we have an idea of like how the pieces fit together. And like I personally, like I've never worked in large offices. I've worked in small offices, so I've worked with small business structures, but understanding like a larger business structure, I don't have any hands-on experience with that.
Yeah.
So I wonder from your perspective now,
Yeah.
being that you work for a larger company that buys music schools and now Ensemble under that umbrella, there's many, many music schools. I'm assuming hundreds of instructors.
Mhm.
Do you think you have a better idea of what vision would have been for yourself in that situation?
Do you mean in terms of do I like knowing what my end goal was? Or but can you give me the question one more time? Because
Sure.
I really like what you're saying. I want to make sure I
I'll
acknowledge.
phrase it a different way. Under the umbrella of Ensemble,
Mm,
you get to see a lot of different business structures as well as the business structure that you're working in, which is called
correct.
Ensemble. And having that insight now, do you feel like you could have applied, if you had that insight back then, could you apply different systems or different things in place with your former music school or
Yeah.
performing arts school to take it to that next level?
Yes, 100%. Okay, I understand your question better now.
Yeah.
Thank you. 100%. I talk with studio owners all the time and I'm able to give them tips and because I'm talking, I mean, I'm gleaning so much valuable information from studio owners like yourselves who are doing things differently than I did and they're experiencing really great work-life balance that I didn't have, profit margins that are healthier than mine were, ways of delegating and trusting their staff and empowering their staff that I was afraid to do. So I'm getting to talk to people and learn all of these really incredible, easily implementable things that I just they weren't on my radar back then. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't know if it would have changed how long we would have owned our business. Like I think because like you were saying, Mandy, I mean, our end goal was to eventually relocate and do something different. But I don't think that we would have exited our business in a state of burnout. I think we would have
Mm,
left now, when we sold our business, the trajectory was great. We had I mean, it was a healthy business, it was growing, but the way that we left was very much from a, like, we're tired. Instead of having created something well, I guess, John, your question made me kind of I could go a couple of different directions. Knowing what I know now, we probably could have even kept our music school and created a structure and a staff that could have run it without us being there all the time. And that's
gotcha.
something that I this is something I hear all the time from studio owners is the idea of delegating and finding employees that you trust enough to run things and do things the way that you would do them is terrifying. And not only is it scary to delegate things and start to hand pieces of your business to your staff and just go, I hope they do it right. That's scary, but also it's another expense, right? So a lot of studio owners are trying to save money by doing everything themselves. It really ends up backfiring in the long run because you end up like me, burnt out. You might have saved some cash along the way, but you didn't give yourself any headspace to really look at your studio objectively and start identifying the things that would help you grow in your community and you could focus on big picture things. So those are a couple things that come to mind. I don't think we would have left as burnt out as we were And also, there probably could have been some flexibility there in our go forward plan. We might have been able to maintain ownership, move, and still have a fully
Mhm.
functioning studio that ran well. I mean, but we didn't create our business to run that way.
Right.
So that wasn't an option for us.
I love that as kind of a segue into what you do now. Now,
Yeah.
what we wanted to talk about when I initially reached out to you about this was valuation and exit strategies, which
Mhm.
is what you said you do a lot of
Yeah.
with studio owners. So, let's first talk about valuations
Yeah.
and what that actually means in practical terms for a music school.
Yep. So this is something that I love talking to people about because again, this can be a sensitive topic and people don't know who they can talk to and you might have an accountant friend that you want to talk to, but they're in your community. How do you start asking people questions about what your business is worth? So I love having these conversations where I can kind of pull the curtain back and
Mhm.
I mean, valuation sometimes can sound scary because I think when people think about valuation, they think if I get a valuation done, it means that I am moving forward and trying to change ownership of my business. And it's not. I mean, knowing what your business is worth is a really, really valuable marker for you to measure growth. If you have vision of bringing in partners for your business, I mean, there's 100 different reasons why knowing what your business is worth is just a valuable piece of the puzzle. So for us, and I'll tell you from my personal experience, this is just my personality. When we were looking to sell, I actually had 3 valuations done because the first one I had done, I didn't like. I had this, I had this number in my head that was more of an emotional number. Just if I could get this for my business, it'll all have been worth it. And so the first number that I got back was from my accountant, and I was disappointed by it, but took some time to digest it and kind of come to terms with it. We worked with a broker for a season to try to help us sell our business, and the valuation he put together for me was same as the first one, which let me know
Mhm.
that, I mean, we were in the right ballpark. The final valuation we had done was through Ensemble, and they all 3 of those came back the same, which was good for me to know that this is industry standard for a service-based business like what we do. The short way to explain how valuation is done is it's a multiple of your profits. It's way more nuanced than that, but essentially what you're looking at is you wanna look at how much your business is profiting, but then you can add back to that number any expenses associated with you. You're kind of trying to paint a picture of maybe what the business would look like if you weren't there for a moment. So you're adding back things like salary, and for me, a lot of things that I was running through the business, like cell phone bills and travel expenses, home office, any health insurance, anything associated with you, go ahead and add it back to your profits. From there, the next step is to look at what your business would need to function without you. Are there new hires that would need to be made to replace your labor in the business? Are you teaching a lot and a lot of the income is coming from you working yourself? Are you doing a lot of administrative work that someone would need to take on if you weren't there? So you're crunching those numbers. So you're adding back expenses associated with you, then you're subtracting what it would cost to replace you in the business. Once you kind of have an understanding of that number there, it's typically multiplied somewhere in a range of 2.5 to 3.5. And that number, that if you kind of do that exercise, that financial exercise, that number usually will be pretty close to what a fair valuation or potential offer from a company like ours or another buyer if you're looking to sell to someone within your studio or someone in the community. That's kind of how you can come up with a fair price.
What, so if I'm understanding correctly, based on what you just said, it sounds like as an owner of a music school, things that would make your business maybe more attractive from a seller's perspective is if as an owner, you're teaching less or none at all. As an
Mhm.
owner, you have an admin team that's handling most of the admin and you're not. So basically the less you're doing as an owner, the better? Is that accurate? Or are there other things that would make one school look more attractive than another?
Yeah. That's a great question. So you're totally right. And sometimes that's hard for people to hear. If you're really passionate about teaching, or if you love the back end and you like doing the administrative work, it doesn't necessarily mean that for your business to be attractive to a buyer that you need to like stop doing the things that you love. That's not true. What you need to have is a proven track record that your business will not completely fall apart if you step away. That's what you
Mhm.
need to show. So that's something that I wish we had done better with our business, and something I've learned since is my husband was teaching all day. I was doing a lot of administrative work. So we had to have a really serious conversation with Ensemble where they said, "Hey, we love what you've built. The culture's amazing. Your teachers are great. You have a track record of great retention, and your student base your numbers are growing. All that's great. But you haven't proven that your business is gonna be okay and can function well without you guys just there all the time." And so to answer your question, like my husband loves to teach, and if we had a couple of years before we sold, if we had said, "All right, we're gonna start changing things so that our business is gonna be ready to purchase in a couple years, no more teaching." That would have
Mhm.
that would have taken the wind out of his sails, right? Because that's what
Right.
he loves
Yeah.
and wants to do. However, what I was doing on the administrative side was I was putting out fires all day long. I was answering phones and emails. I had a team of administrative staff that were fantastic, but I was so controlling. And I mean this in a good way. Like I was quality control was very important to me, and I knew if I did it myself, it would get done right. I was scared to let go of some pieces and start testing out my staff to see what they could handle without me. And that's where I think most studio owners make the same mistake. Is it's just the fear of what's going to happen if I start letting my staff do some of the things that I do. But what that communicate if you can kind of get past that hurdle and start creating teams and empowering your staff to handle things so that we I talk with studio owners all the time and just say, "Hey, if you wanted to go on a 1-week vacation, what would break first? Like if your cell phone doesn't work cuz you're on a cruise, what's going to be the thing that you know is not going to go well if it happens while you're gone?" Those are the types of exercises that I think studio owners need to do, because those are the things that a potential new owner needs to know are figured out already. Because if you're not there and your team has no clue how Amie would answer this question or how does she respond to this email, if you have no systems and processes that protect your business, if you're not available, then that's where things tend to fall apart or make a business less valuable to a potential new owner.
You mentioned some good things, I think, that paint a picture about what would maybe hinder evaluation.
Mhm.
And conversely, the opposite obviously
Yep.
would boost evaluation, I'm assuming. But are there any other things that maybe would be surprising for people to hear, like, "Oh, that's an aspect that would boost evaluation."
Mm. I don't think any of it. I think people who are running a music school aren't surprised by the things that I'll talk with them about. A lot of it is retention rates. Because not only not only is someone like Ensemble looking at your financials, we want to know that you're profitable and that your business is healthy financially. Obviously, that's important and that doesn't surprise anybody. But a lot of there are some more qualitative things that a new potential owner is gonna really take into consideration, and that's what's your culture? Do you have an environment that is, I know I keep saying the word empowering, but does your staff feel valued, and do they feel like they know what's going on and you guys are all part of the same team? If you're working with primarily younger kids, what does that culture look like? Are you a studio do you know who your main demographic is, and does your brand support that? Those types of things. Do you have a recognizable brand? Holy cow. A lot of people if they've been doing this for decades and decades, I think for some younger studio owners, this is a piece of cake. It makes total sense. But a lot of times I talk to studio owners who have been doing this for a really long time, and their branding and digital marketing and their social media presence is really behind the times. And so things like that, while it might not change, like when I was talking about the financial piece earlier in that multiple that we use, while you can't really multiply how many Facebook followers you have or Instagram followers you have, that doesn't directly impact the numbers per se. It can it may give you a little bit more negotiating room if you're able to say, like, this is my place in the community. It's strong. I have this track record of community engagement and relationships. Like, we are a staple in our community. Things like that will give you some negotiating power when you're talking to a potential buyer.
Let me ask you, and this might be an impossible question to answer, but um, I think when we're talking about music school owners, we like to pride ourselves in those things that you're mentioning.
Mm,
Like, I am really part of the community and
yep.
I'm involved, and all those things that you mentioned. How do you measure that though? How do like, how do you put a number to that, or how do you prove it to a potential buyer?
Yep.
Or is it something that you just kind of have to convince someone of?
You might kind of have to convince. I'm not the person who sits at the table for Ensemble and has the
Sure.
conversations where we're going, hey, this is an offer, and like there might be some wiggle room here and there. I know what it was like with my experience, and there was a lot of value placed in and this is something I really genuinely love about Ensemble, is we're really committed to legacy. So what you've created and the culture and the brand and the product that you have been fine-tuning for your community is really important to us. It's not going to benefit anyone for us to step in and change those things that you've been developing in your community for many, many years. So we like to preserve and be good stewards of what already exists. I think for me, the reputation that we had, this is a really good, John, you kind of got me, I'm spinning trying to think through how that really how it can really translate, again, because I'm not the one sitting at the table having those conversations further down the road. I can't say for sure how it really, if there's like a formula that they might use, or
Hmm.
we have this
Yeah.
much wiggle room if they have this kind of Instagram following. It doesn't look like that, but it does mean something, and it makes you more appealing. Here's what I will say. You can appeal to a much larger audience of potential buyers if you have those things in place. It's going to give you more options. If you kind of pigeonhole yourself and you create something that would only work for one very specific type of buyer, you just have fewer options for yourself. So when it comes time to talking to someone in your community, someone on staff, someone like Ensemble, it's not going to hurt for you to have a following and a community of people who support your business locally. That's only going to make you look better to a bigger group of potential buyers. I don't know if I've answered your question exactly, but I'm going to be chewing on this one. I'm going to be
Yeah.
chewing
Well,
on this after.
admittedly, I think it was a really
It's a
hard
hard one.
question to answer. And for perspective, I mean, like, I look at my own school and I think, oh my God, my instructors are the best. My
Mm,
my clients are the best. The students are the
yeah.
best. This community is the best. I think the world of it, and I don't think anyone else could do it. Right? Maybe it's ego, but that's how I feel about it. But from someone on the outside, right?
Yep.
I don't have a way to say, like, here's why. I just say, like, man, I really feel that,
I
and
really feel, oh, yeah.
you know what I mean?
Okay, so John, one thing that you can do, and for studio, I think this is something that studio owners can do right now, is always, always ask for reviews. Get Google reviews, Yelp reviews, get people talking, put testimonials all over any place you can get them, because that you can't, I was going to say you can't fake that, but I know that there are there are ways that people do. But that's a really easy way. I mean, because that's something that we do look at. We look at what Google reviews look like and how many there are, how many stars do you have, because that paints a really, realistic picture of how your company is viewed by your clients and by the community. And that's a really good way to get information from people. It's not just coming from you that my business is amazing.
Yeah.
They want to hear it from other people.
Sure.
Because obviously we think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go back to another thing that you said about asking a studio owner if they wanted to take a vacation for a week.
Mm-hmm.
How would that happen? Now, this is kind of on the heels of where I was going to go with the other thing that you do, which is help owners create exit strategies. What if we framed it more like, instead of an exit strategy, which suggests I'm leaving my business,
Yeah.
what if we just framed it as vacation strategy? Right? Because that suggests that you're coming back and you have a strategy for a vacation, but it's like a microcosm of what could happen in the future if you do decide to sell. Because that's really what I want to give our listeners, whether they want to sell or whether they're not. Hopefully they're not at that point you were where you just burnt out, I got to sell.
Yeah.
But what can I do to start creating my vacation strategy?
I love this so much, and I'm definitely going to steal that. I'm going to start saying vacation strategy.
Steal away.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's a really great exercise to do. Even if you have no vacation coming up, sit down and just, if you're an entrepreneur, studio owner, if you even just think about vacation, if you're anything like me, you get a knot in your stomach and you go, oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Like, this is not going to work. Who's going to do this? Who's going to make, you just already have a list. So even just starting there, what things popped into your head first? What I would suggest people do is make that list of things that are going to break first. And for me, I'll tell you what those things were for me. I was the person who handled the majority of scheduling. And I also did all of the emails and responding to angry parents, that kind of stuff, because I considered that to be really sensitive. So I wanted to be the one handling it. But I had never trained anyone to run payroll for me or pay bills, or I was the only one who knew how to do that. I had never documented how and when those things happened. So I would say for any studio owner, this afternoon, go ahead and make that list of things that make you panic a little bit when you think someone else might have to do them or they won't get done if you're gone. And then start writing down, create a handbook or some kind of, you're on vacation, hand it to your staff and be like, this is how I handle all this stuff. And here's how you can, keep things running without me. Having your systems and processes written down, even just for your own peace of mind, is a really great first step.
How involved do you think a handbook and processes should be?
I think every little thing that you think is going to be common sense for someone else needs to be written down. Just because and you guys know this. I mean, anybody who employs other people, that there are things that come very naturally to you that other people have to be told. And that's fine. We're all wired differently. And especially being in the entrepreneurial seat, our brains are just different, right? We just are the entrepreneurial curse, right? You just cannot help but be a certain way. But I don't think that any detail is too small. And I did start doing this. It took me a while to get to this point, but I did start writing down things for myself, and I was taking screenshots. And if this pops up when you're doing this, I wanted there to be a flow chart that made it really, really clear for my staff that in my absence, they could just pop it open to page whatever and go, okay, this is how Amie would do this. If I can't get it to work, here's someone else on staff who might know. I don't think you should spare any detail because, again, it might feel like something second nature and easy for you, but it's not going to be for everybody else. And that's things as simple as how to answer an angry email. Those things, we might know how to handle that because it comes naturally to us, but those things need to be spelled out, words to use and words not to use, things.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Sorry, go ahead,
I think that's something, I've learned that over the 10 years too.
Yeah.
Is that I think initially I was a little worried to to offend people, like
Yeah.
that I was
Oh,
giving
sure.
them too much detail, you know? And so, but now I'm like, nope, be redundant, give them
Be
more detail than
redundant.
what they need.
Yeah.
Yes, because things do come just like second nature to us, and we think of
Yeah.
every little detail, and
Yep.
not everybody does. I
It's
love this
hard to
vacation
balance.
strategy.
Yeah, I love this.
And
Yeah.
yes, and then it was last year I did like an out of the or a couple years ago, went out of the country with a really busy itinerary, so had things really set up before I
Yeah.
left. And then things went well, and then so come back and say, "Oh, you did a really great job with that.
Yes.
Why don't we keep that on your plate?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is a good way to evaluate what you're doing, how you can pass it off, and then, take
And those little exercises, you'll see who in your staff really likes the challenge and rises to the occasion and which ones don't. And that can be really great indicators of who's ready for more responsibility and who's not quite the right fit for that. There are smaller ways you can do it. I've heard of studio owners, and I would do this occasionally. I would be like, "Hey, tomorrow's a test day. I'm not answering my phone. Let's just see what happens." Not
Mhm.
hopefully, we can't burn the whole business to the ground in one business day, hopefully.
Yeah,
So, I would do things like that where I would just go, "Hey, I'm not gonna be available. We're just kinda testing areas that we need to strengthen in the school and what you guys have questions about that I haven't quite equipped you for yet." I knew that my staff could handle, obviously, I didn't do that before they were ready, but I would do little tests just to kinda see what fell through the cracks and where I needed to prepare them better.
that's great.
So, what do you think are qualities that you see in studio owners that make it easier for them to transition when there is an exit strategy or when you are working on exit strategies?
I really like this question. I I have found that and I have hundreds and hundreds of conversations with studio owners who are, like, just trying to wrap their brains around, like, "Do I wanna do this until I'm in my 80s? Or do I is re I love what I do, and how could I" they're maybe not ready right now, but it is on their mind of, like, how what the long term is gonna look like for them. I wish that more studio owners could kind of let go of the tortured artist persona that
Mm,
that we find a lot in our industry. It's this idea of I'm suffering for my students, I'm suffering for this business because it's the arts, it's kids. Like we're kind of there's a little bit of a martyrdom
yeah.
thing that happens with music education that I'm not a fan of. I've been there and I did it, but it doesn't help or empower anybody past you teaching your students and maybe being miserable. I mean, there there are pieces of that are really commendable and it's beautiful to just but there's this psychological phenomenon that happens where an entrepreneur in the music space feels guilty for having a successful business and maybe being able
Yeah.
to afford to go on a vacation or drive a car that's not a beater. Or, I mean, there's this
Mhm.
idea that if we're successful, that somehow that's a shameful thing. And the people who do better and have more peace and work-life balance are people who have let go of that. And they've just been like, "Look, I want stability for my family, for my staff. If my business is stable and profitable, I can serve my clients better. It's not about just suffering for the art." Those people tend to do better. They do better mentally when a transition happens because they already have let go of that enmeshment of who they are as a teacher and who they are as a business owner and their personal lives. The ones who are so bound to their identity as a teacher and can't kind of get themselves out of that mindset to start thinking a bigger picture, this is a much harder transition for them.
Mm. That's an amazing answer because
Yeah.
I was really, when I pitched that, I was thinking more about what are the mechanical things in the business or what are the mechanical things
Yep.
that owners have in place? And you're really talking about like psychological things
Yeah.
and understanding yourself and your self-worth and like what this means across the board, not just in your studio,
100%.
but for your life. That's kind of profound. It's not very often where I'm like kind of stuck in this podcast and realize like, oh shoot, I got to get back and ask another question. But you just did it, Amie. Oh, okay. All right. So, well, I'm going to go to my list then. What are the top 3 things owners can do right now to improve their school's position, whether they want to sell or not?
Yeah. This great question. I would say start practicing delegating things. Just try it. Try it and see how it goes. The result of that will inform you of ways that your studio likely needs to improve a little bit. Absolutely great exercise. Delegate one thing and just see what happens. Another thing is clean up your finances. Make sure that the way that you are documenting expenses and income is clean and clear to any third party that might look at it one day. Whether you sell or not doesn't matter. When you're doing your taxes, or if you're trying to improve your budget, or you're trying to figure out where that money went, you've got to have clean financials. John, another thing that I'm glad that we did that I would recommend any studio owner do is find a school that you aspire to be like and get in touch with that owner. If there's somebody, whether it's a competing studio with you or another studio in another city that's just knocking it out of the park and they just look amazing and you would give anything to be like that, find the studios that are doing it better than you and go talk to those owners. Treat them to coffee. Find those people and see if there are ways that you can pick their brain or collaborate with them so that you can start to learn from their experiences. That's something we did early on, and it saved us. We were going, oh, hey, it's so nice to meet you. Here's all the things we're going to do with our music school. And they would go, no, that's not a good idea. This would be a way to improve that. They saved us from a world of hurt with some advice and strategies that they had implemented years prior. And so we were able to learn from their history and their knowledge. And I hope that that's something that I would recommend to any studio owner is just find some other studio owners to talk to, especially the ones who are doing it better than you.
Quick follow-up to the clean financials. What does that look like in practice? I mean, is this we're looking at our P&L statement every month? Is it basically like I give my files to my accountant and the accountant doesn't have to ask questions? What is that? What do you think that translates to?
That's a really good question. And I think it depends on the school and kind of how you're set up, the size of your school too. There are some things, just like we talked about earlier, things that came really naturally to me, but some studio owners, it just doesn't cross their mind. Again, and maybe like you guys, I mean, we're artists who then like kind of fell into this space where now we need to be really good accountants and HR managers and like all these things. So the financial piece, I mean, on a basic level, it could be, somebody might be listening right now who needs to know that you need to have a business bank account set up that is separate from your personal finances. And you need to track something as simple as you need to have a business debit card or a business line of credit that is separate from your personal financials and your family financials so that it's a lot cleaner and easier for you to pull up purchase histories, line of credit stuff. I mean, having just on a foundational level, having separate accounts for your business and your personal is something that some people don't do. And maybe their business is young enough that they're okay with that right now, but that's not going to be scalable. So if you have growth on your mind, start there, make sure that those things are separate. But as your studio is bigger and you're starting to look at, just like you asked about P&Ls, most successful studio owners that I'm talking to, they know their P&Ls in and out. They're very familiar with what's being tracked in their QuickBooks, and they know where improvements need to be made. They're not surprised when when their profit looks a little bit different this year than it did last year because they've been tracking it all along. So there are some really basic things that we could talk about that just seem to be common sense and easy, but beginner studio owners might not be thinking of yet. And then the bigger you get, when you start getting accountants involved and sharing your P&L statements, I think at least quarterly reviewing your financials is an absolute must.
Okay. So we're going to bring it home here, but what was it like for you personally to hand over ownership of your studio and maybe give like one positive, one negative?
Sure. To be completely honest, it was a really great quality of life shift that we made.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I are we can be workaholics, especially myself. I threw myself into growing the business and really lost a lot of I didn't have work-life balance. That I didn't even know how to do that. And so for us to make the change of handing it off and I really trusted. I mean, Ensemble was so kind and careful about preserving our legacy and making sure that my staff was really taken care of. I felt really confident about that. So being able to let go of something that, just really had the business did not take a toll on us. The entrepreneurial lifestyle and us not having work-life balance is what took a toll. So for me to be able to step away from that and have a season of kind of getting everything kind of balanced back out again was really, really good for me. So I to answer that part of your question, like being able to step away was a really, really positive thing for us because it allowed us to kind of balance back out. And I didn't feel that it took a little while for that feeling of risk that I just had in the pit of my stomach all the time to be able to let go of that was really, really great. I think that the only negative I could think of, John, is really, it was just hard. It was hard to let go. And I really just contradicted myself. Hold on. I'm sorry. It was easy to let go logistically and emotionally from my role as the owner. What I had a hard time with was just the identity that I had attached to it, which is why I kind of brought up that tortured artist thing, because you kind of have some pride in that, right? So the suffering, there's some pride in the suffering. So to be able to really feel confident that taking a payout for what I had built, the asset that I built, I think there was a little bit of psychologically, it was a little bit hard to go, okay, like, no, that was an okay thing to do. If it had not been an arts business, if I had, I don't know, created some Bitcoin company and then sold it, I would have felt great. But because I was selling something that was about making rock stars and making kids' dreams come true, there was a little piece there that felt we struggled a little bit with, does this look like selling out? A lot of people, when we sold, called to check on us and they said, "Are you okay? We thought you were living your dream. Like, we thought this was like, are you and your husband okay? Like, surely for you to sell means that something bad happened." People just didn't understand that for us, this was like a really big lift and quality of life shift for us. So the negative was just kind of like learning to really feel confident about the decision that we made. And to be honest, Mandy, John, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I still get that little entrepreneurial itch where I go, I need a side hustle. I need like, it's still there in the back of my mind. And so it has been nice. Like, I love working for a bigger company, and that piece of my life has really, really improved. But there's this little, I don't know if it's an angel or a devil on my shoulder that's like, you need to make something again. And I'm just waiting. I'll see how long I can stave that voice off.
Amie, this is like the conversation has been great, and it's funny because it really was. I think we got across the points of what you do at Ensemble as it relates to valuation and exit strategies and things like that. But I like that we were able to frame it more from the perspective of you going through that journey.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, I kind of thought we would be talking more about like what you do for Ensemble on a day-to-day basis. And it really kind of came more from a reflection point, and
Sure.
which I think is really helpful for other studio owners and those in our situation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is just really, it's a really big decision to make for anyone to build something from the ground up and then go, what happens to this in a life event that changes whether I can continue running it or not, when I'm ready to retire, if I have to move one day, like that, it's a big deal. And so I love talking about my story. Nothing is off limits because I did not have anyone to talk to, and I didn't have a lot of resources. And so I am very willing to talk about what it was like for me. And those are the conversations that I have most of the time. If I call a student, John, just like with you, me meeting you at NAMM and saying, hey, have you ever thought about, even though that you weren't, jumping at the, oh, yes, I am. I mean, it wasn't like it was this.
I said no, by the way.
Yeah, he did say no.
For the record.
For the record, he said no. But it turns into creating and building relationships with other people in the industry so that we can all support each other. That's what it's all about, is making sure that I felt like I was on an island as a studio owner, and that's not fun. So the more resources and the more tools that I can provide for other studio owners, the better. That's what I want. That's what's really, really important to me. John, you're so funny. Yeah, meeting you at NAMM, I will just say this into your audience who's listening. I got to listen to you speak, and it was very, very educational and really exciting to hear about what you guys are doing with your school. Got me all fired up.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Amie, this has been fantastic. For studio owners who might want to reach out to you and might want to explore this idea, where can they find you?
Yeah, it's really easy to jump on the Ensemble Schools website and contact me there, but I'll tell you the easiest way is to just email me. If you email me at Amie, AMIE.Nunez, NUNEZ, at ensembleschools.com, we can chat as much as you want. And listen, I talk with studio owners all the time who have no interest in selling. They just want to know, how does it work? What are my options? And again, let's build a network of people who are really, really educated and have options when the time comes. So even if you just have questions about anything I talked about today but have no interest in selling to Ensemble, hit me up. I'm all
That's
for it.
awesome. I appreciate that, Amie.
Yeah.
So we will wrap this one up then, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, Mandy. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Amie. Yeah.
If you have topic suggestions or questions, please contact us at info@rockschoolproprietor.com. We'd love to hear from you and hear suggestions for future shows. We've put together some free resources for teachers and studio owners over at rockschoolproprietor.com and a private Facebook group called The Modern Music School. Please join us over there. On social, I'm at rock.school.proprietor on Instagram and John Kazicki on both LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify are always appreciated. And if you enjoyed the show and gain insight from our conversation, then we count that as a win. All we ask in return is that you pay it forward, and please share the show with someone you think needs to hear it.